Good evening and welcome back to Mission Control Houston for continuing coverage of the rendezvous and docking of the next trio to join the crew aboard the International Space Station as Expedition 33 crew members, Soyuz 35 crew members, Fyodor Yurshikin, Karen Nyberg, and Luca Parmitano hone in on the International Outpost as it orbits approximately 250 miles above Southeast Asia. Here in Mission Control, the team is watching carefully over systems of the International Space Station, making sure that it's ready to accept its new crew members aboard their Soyuz TMA-09M vehicle. The trio is now continuing its approach to the International Space Station per the normal timeline for rendezvous and docking. Again, docking is scheduled to occur tonight at 9:16 p.m. Central Time. While we've been away, there have been a couple of minor issues that the control team has been working as part of the normal activities leading up to a rendezvous and docking of this nature. Various systems on the space station are oriented to put the station in the proper location for the arrival of the Soyuz to the Rassvet module. There also are activities according to the plan to latch down beta gimbal assemblies, which are part of the solar arrays that help the space station's electricity generating power plants track the sun. One of those arrays, which has had minor difficulties in the past latching, didn't last the first time, but after a couple of tries they were able to get that latched and is now in a good position. We have handed over control of the orbiting outpost's attitude or orientation relative to the Earth from the American electric-driven control moment gyroscopes to the Russian chemical thrusters. Mission Control Moscow is now in charge of the control of the orientation or attitude of the International Space Station.
043300.
Mission Control is talking with the crew of the Soyuz spacecraft, commanded by Fyodor Yurshikin. And just about 24 minutes after the hour, the Soyuz crew reported they had a visual sighting of the International Space Station, a good sign as they continue to travel toward the space station according to the plots that are planned. Now about 8,000 meters away from the International Space Station, approaching at about 12 meters per second.
Command has been sent. Romeo 17. At 043307. 8 kilometers.
We are now 42 minutes and 12 seconds away from the planned docking. A lot of work yet to be done with several different impulse firings of the Soyuz engines to fine-tune the approach to the International Space Station. The fly-around mode should start at about 8:51 p.m. Central Time, and after that we'll do some station keeping starting at 8:58 p.m. Central Time, and then the final approach to the space station should begin about 9:05 p.m. Central. Again, all that aiming toward a rendezvous at the Rassvet docking module on the International Space Station at 9:16 p.m. Central Time.
We're standing by for stabilizing of the mode.
We do have some recorded video from this afternoon's launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, Houston time at least. Let's take a look at that video now.
You're receiving video on your...
And those were the sights and sounds from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan as an evening launch out at about 70 degrees, a beautiful day on the steppe of Kazakhstan as Kara Nyberg of NASA, Luca Parmitano of the European Space Agency and the Italian Space Agency, and Fyodor Yershikhin of the Russian Federal Space Agency blasted off for a destiny with the International Space Station. Here in the flight control room, again, the team is watching over all the space station's components and systems, making sure that it is ready to accept the new visitors. Royce Renfrew is the flight director in charge of the team for this Orbit 3 shift, with Kate Rubins, astronaut, serving as spacecraft communicator, talking primarily with Chris Cassidy, working in the American segment of the International Space Station, as flight controllers in Moscow talk with their Russian colleagues on board. Alexander Mazurkin and Commander Pavel Vinogradov as they prepare the Russian docking port for the arrival of the Soyuz and its crew members. Again, today's launch occurred at 3:31 p.m. Central Time, right on the money, and the Soyuz climbed into the sky above Kazakhstan on its normal place with all of its systems functioning exactly as planned.
And there are no issues to report. All systems are nominal. Copy, Olimpo. Thank you.
And as you heard there, no problems with the Soyuz vehicle or with the station systems, all systems nominal. And we are proceeding toward a rendezvous and docking in 38 minutes from now.
I have a very clear image of the station at the center of VSK.
Принято.
Copy. Moscow Station. We have the video image now. It's kind of all scrambled, but we do have the image. Okay, and it's 043840, 4 kilometers, and range rate is almost 12, but closer to 11.5 meters per second, and the station is at the very center of Aveska.
Наблюдаем картинку.
Excellent, and we have a video now. Copy. Maneuver in progress. The station is going up and to the left. Almost.
We're getting some great views from the external cameras on the International Space Station as it orbits high over Australia and the northeastern coast of that continent. We're standing by for an on-the-spot interview for the activities going on at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan following launch, where dignitaries and family members will be watching as the rendezvous and docking take place this evening.
All's nominal.
We are standing by to go to Rob Navius, our public affairs officer that's on site at the Baikonur launch site. Let's go to Rob now and find out how things are going there. Welcome in, Rob. Good to see you.
Kelly, welcome to Baikonur, Kazakhstan. We're in a vintage 1960s auditorium called the Tsenki Hall. This is a hall that was used half a century ago by Russian communications specialists as they sought to relax and watch movies from time to time, taking a break from their work. It's been just about 5 hours or so since the launch of the Soyuz from the Cosmodrome, which is about 40 minutes away. It was a jubilant crowd out at the viewing site for that liftoff and under cloudless skies, gorgeous weather in the pre-dawn hours today. That adrenaline has carried over, and within a few minutes, guests, family members, and VIPs will be coming into the hall here to watch the docking of the Soyuz to the Rassvet module, and about an hour or so later, the opening of the hatches to double the size of the Expedition 36 crew. Now, behind me, in these seats, shortly will be family members in the second row. They'll have an opportunity through the magic of the internet and through some incredibly heroic efforts by NASA communications specialists here in Baikonur to pull in a NASA television video feed into this auditorium and to set up voice loops on a laptop computer that will enable the family members and the VIPs to communicate with the crew members, Nyberg, Parmitano, and Yurchikhin, as they float into the International Space Station to begin their half year aboard the orbital outpost. Also, we expect congratulatory calls to the crew from Bill Gerstenmaier, NASA's Associate Administrator for Human Exploration and Operations, from Jean-Jacques Dordain, the Director General of the European Space Agency, before we move on to hear from the family members as they speak to their loved ones. It is almost a surrealistic scene here at the Tsenki Hall in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. We've gone from the future back to the past, using technology from today and in the future to bring everybody together from here on Earth to the International Space Station. Now back to you, Kelly.
All right, thanks, Rob. And while you were giving us that update from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, the flight director, Royce Renfrew, went around the room here for the go, no-go poll for readiness to dock to the International Space Station, the Soyuz 35 vehicle and its three-person crew, and got a unanimous go for docking from all of the International Space Station flight controllers here in the room. We have a view of the Soyuz as it begins to approach the International Space Station, coming within visual range of the external cameras on the exterior of the station. The Soyuz now about 2,000 meters away from the International Space Station, continuing to approach at a rate of about 5 meters per second.
310. A little less than 2 kilometers, 5.35 range rate. Copy.
And so about 2 kilometers until the Soyuz reaches the International Space Station. There are several more impulse bursts from the Soyuz thrusters to help refine this approach as the automated Kurs docking system continues to control the Soyuz and its arrival at the International Space Station. The most recent Progress vehicle to rendezvous and dock to the International Space Station, Progress 51, had some difficulties with deploying the Kurs antenna that's used for the automated rendezvous and docking system. No such problems with this Soyuz spacecraft. All the antennas and appendages deployed exactly as had planned, and so the Soyuz continuing its stately approach toward the international outpost. Both vehicles traveling at approximately 17,500 miles an hour, circling the globe every 90 minutes. Right now circling overhead of Australia. Some amazing views from the external cameras on the International Space Station of the Australian continent below.
5.17 meters per second range rate. Olympus. All systems are nominal. Olympus. Can you switch AGC mode back and forth by sending command R5 to see if we can get a clear picture? Copy. Romeo 5. Okay, and don't rush. Let's take it easy. Command has been sent. Is this better, or do you want to?
And here's a look at some of the live telemetry and video pictures from the Soyuz 35 spacecraft as it brings Fyodor Yushchin, Karen Nyberg, and Luca Parmitano within clear visual range of the International Space Station. Now, just under 2 kilometers to the International Space Station, coming up on impulse burn number 5.
Copy, we're watching.
Continuing to refine the approach to the orbiting outpost.
At 04:46:30, 1,050 meters, range rate 3.45 meters per second. Copy. The station is...
The visiting vehicle officer here in Mission Control reports to Flight Director Royce Renfrew that Soyuz 35 spacecraft with a trio of space explorers is now 1 kilometer away from the International Space Station. The approach coming in at just under 3.5 meters per second. Lower left-hand corner of the screen on this downlink view from the external cameras, you can see the Soyuz as it continues to match orbits with the International Space Station.
How are you receiving the rendezvous display? Olympia, we're receiving a video of display. It's good quality, and we're braking still, so we're performing the next depot burn. Copy.
So yet another impulse burn coming up to continue slowing the rate of speed for the Soyuz spacecraft as it closes in, now about 3/4 of a kilometer from the International Space Station. We're slowing down from about 3.5 meters per second down to 2.5 meters per second, and that rate will continue to slow until the Soyuz matches speed with the International Space Station and begins its station keeping.
I have a very clear image of station in Veska. Copy. USOS, a large diameter, is getting closer to half of a square, and depots are on for retrograde burn, and rate is going down, and we're watching further.
More of that downlink telemetry from the Soyuz spacecraft. You can see that we are just about half a kilometer from the International Space Station. The distance to the station down the lower left-hand quadrant of this display. The rate of approach is slowed to 1.39 meters per second.
Half of a square. We copy.
International Space Station looming large in the Soyuz's cameras. It's the size of an American football field, including the end zones. As much room inside as a 5-bedroom house, complete with a gymnasium and a bay window that allows a unique view on the world below.
Another command for AJC mode, which is the same command, Romeo 5, to switch between AJC. Okay, sending command. How are you receiving a video now? This is much better, thank you. And you can use AJC mode at your discretion as necessary. Copy.
Visiting vehicle officer reports that the Soyuz spacecraft have begun its fly-around. This is a slight change in its orientation relative to the station, and bringing into alignment with the Rosvet docking port.
Range, and you're flying around? Yes, we're flying around at a range of 368 meters. Range rate is about 1 meter per second. In the C line, the first digit is 0. Copy.
Soyuz spacecraft disappearing behind one of the station's solar arrays as it begins to fly around and align itself with the docking port. Again, we are aiming toward a docking with the space station at 9:16 p.m. Central Time, just 22.5 minutes from now. About 5 minutes remaining in this station keeping until we begin station keeping after the Soyuz aligns itself with the docking port.
We still have fly around, lock on, 300 meters range, 0.68 meters per second range rate. Copy.
Олимп в 04:50.
At 04:55, we might have LOS on S band for about 5 minutes. Copy. At 04:55, we might have LOS.
Soyuz maintaining a distance of about 300 meters as it does this fly around to align itself with the docking port. Once it is in general alignment with the docking port, we'll begin the station keeping period.
270 meters.
Station keeping scheduled to begin at 58 minutes before the hour.
Copy.
Or about 4 minutes from now. And then at 9:05 p.m. we'll begin the start of final approach. Clouds of the South Pacific providing a majestic backdrop to the Soyuz as it closes in on the International Space Station. Of course, Commander Fyodor Yashkin, NASA astronaut Karen Nyberg, and European Space Agency and Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano aboard that spacecraft. preparing to arrive at their new home away from home, the International Space Station. Visiting vehicle officer reports we've got about 15 degrees left to go before we're in alignment with the docking port.
Yes, that's it.
Rassvet's the name of that docking module. It is the Russian word for dawn, and it was delivered and installed on the International Space Station on May 14, 2010. Here's a graphic that depicts where Soyuz 35 TMA-09M will be docking on the Earth-facing port of that docking connection.
Page 63 is complete.
Now 18 minutes, 30 seconds to docking.
This is too early. First, we need to do the Zavkon. So sorry. I'll wait.
And we've temporarily lost our signal through the tracking data relay satellite system, which is relaying that from the Moscow Mission Control Center here.
We can only receive it when we have KU band, so please provide continuous.
We should be getting the
detailed comment.
connection back in just a few minutes here. This is an expected loss of signal period. All systems going very well with this Soyuz rendezvous and docking following today's 3:31 p.m. Central Time launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. A few minor hiccups in the preparations to get the space station ready to accept the arriving vehicle and crew, but the beta gimbal assembly that was not latching down properly, one of those systems that allows the solar arrays to best track the sun and provide maximum power generation, requiring a couple of different tries to get it latched, but then latching successfully and giving us the go for a nominal rendezvous and docking.
Есть переход на Сим-1. Принято.
Confirm transition to inaudible 1.
Принято.
Copy.
On board the International Space Station, Commander Pavel Vinogradov and his Russian colleague Alexander Mazurkin, along with American Chris Cassidy, carefully monitoring the approach of the Soyuz spacecraft toward their home away from home.
We copy both.
Again, the Soyuz rendezvous is being directed by an automated docking system. But the crew is in the Russian segment of the space station ready to take manual control if there should be some unusual failure of the automated system. But so far it's working like a champ.
Скорость практически 0.
Range rate is pretty much 0.
Принято. Ожидаем дальнейших указаний.
Stand by for further recommendations.
Принято.
Copy.
Аленка, разрешаем выдать
You
причаливание.
are go to send final approach command.
Принято. Выдаем команду.
Copy. Final approach command.
Готов, Федор.
Arms. Okay.
Выдаем команду причал.
Send in final approach command.
Не получаем.
We do not receive.
Принято.
Copy.
Олимпа, мы не получаем видеокартинку.
Speaking simultaneous.
Принято. Ведите подробный репортаж.
Proceed with the detailed report.
0,32.
0.32, 0.4.
Принято. 0,5. Пошли.
0.5,
0,7.
0.7,
0,8.
8.
Mission Control Moscow is giving the team aboard the Soyuz spacecraft and the International Space Station a go to begin the final approach, which may give them just a little bit ahead of schedule.
Copy.
Диаметр американского сегмента
The
приближается к
diameter of the USOS is getting close to 2 cells. Past 1.5.
Транслируйте нам данные по скорости и дальности.
Continue reporting range and range rate data.
0,8 скорость на сближение. Дальность
0.8 and closing range 140. Copy.
картинку не получаем. Введите подробный репортаж.
We do not receive the image.
По X, по Y. Значит, такого числа практически в центре ВСК.
Docking port is approximately 1/2 of the cell to the left from the VSK center.
Visiting vehicle officer giving Royce Renfrew, the flight director here in Mission Control, the news that the Soyuz is beginning its final approach.
Past 2 cells, where the larger diameter of the US segment is now larger than 2 cells. Copy.
0,60.
169 and closing,
Расстояние 100 метров.
range 100 meters.
Принято 100 метров.
100 meters. Copy.
Продолжайте вести репортаж.
Continue.
Четко наблюдаю стыковочный узел ВСК.
Clear visual of the docking port. It's clean.
Принято.
Copy.
Дальность, скорость.
Range and range rate
93 метра, скорость
93 meters. 0.45 and closing.
We do have some video fresh in from Baikonur where the dignitaries and family members are watching. They were there for launch earlier today at 3:31 p.m. And now are there to watch the rendezvous and docking.
80 meters.
Among them, Doug Hurley, the husband of Karen Nyberg, who's aboard this Soyuz 35 spacecraft, getting ready to dock with the International Space Station, along with her colleagues Fyodor Yushchin at the controls and Luca Parmitano of the European Space Agency.
Скорость на сближение 0,36
136 meters.
Here is the upfront and
метров.
close view from the cameras on the Soyuz spacecraft as it hones in on the Rosviet module. Again, that stands for Dawn.
More than one.
Стыковочного узла.
It is one of the Earth-facing docking ports of the International Space Station.
Copy.
0,3 скорость движения.
0.3 and closing.
Принято.
Copy.
Наблюдаем мишень.
We have visual of the target. Crosshairs are most aligned. One
Центр перекрестия.
cell to the right, one down from the center of the crosshair. Copy.
0,2 скорость на сближение.
0.2 and closing. 50 meters is the range.
Принято.
Soyuz spacecraft now 50 meters out from the International Space Station, closing at just a quarter of a meter per second.
Slowly moves towards the center of the
Принято.
crosshair. Copy.
Кресты собраны.
Crosshairs aligned.
Вас понял.
Copy.
0,15 скорость на сближение.
0.15 meters per second and closing.
Причал, замечаний нет.
Final approach, no issues.
Кресты собраны.
On the final approach, screen target is in place. Crosshairs aligned.
1,5 метра по диаметру стыковочного узла.
1.5 cells relative to the diameter of the docking port. SSVP readiness confirmed.
Принято.
Copy.
0,13.
0.13 and closing.
Небольшие такие колебания.
Very small fluctuations, meaning target relative to the crosshair.
Visiting vehicle officer reports that the Soyuz docking mechanism is now powered up and ready to make contact with the Rasyet docking port.
Close, copy.
Here's another look at that telemetry as both picture and data tell the story.
From the crosshair,
Вниз одна клетка.
by one cell to the right, by one cell down.
По центру. Кресты
Here's the line.
скорость сближения.
0.15 is the range rate and closing.
Soyuz now just 40 meters away from the International Space Station docking port.
Мишень вправо одна.
Target
Вниз одна
one
клетка.
cell to the right, one
Кресты собраны.
down relative to the crosshair center. Crosshair is aligned. 0.15 meters per second and closing. Our range is 30 meters. 30.
Принято, подтверждаем.
Copy and confirm.
Мишень.
Target
Одна клетка вниз от центра.
one cell down from the center of the
Distance to target now 29 meters.
Скорость
Soyuz coming in very slowly at 0.15 meters per second.
copy.
Docking systems powered and ready to latch.
Приближаемся к трем клеткам по
Getting close to the three cells relative to the width of the docking port. Copy.
Скорость на сближение 0,15.
0.15 meters per second and closing.
Мишень практически.
You can see the thrusters of the Soyuz firing as it refines its approach.
Есть небольшое движение вправо-вниз, одна клетка.
Small drift to the right by one cell.
Есть небольшое расхождение по тангажу.
Deviation and pitch channel. Copy.
Мишень четко в центре.
Target is in the center of the crosshair. Crosshair is aligned.
Антенна есть, ССВП готов.
SSVP availability confirmed. Yes, we confirm the.
Visiting vehicle officer reporting to Flight Director Royce Renfro that we're 20 meters out.
Crosshair is aligned. We have roll discrepancy.
You can see the changing colors as a sunset is in the offing.
Ожидаем выравнивания.
Identify for trimming. But further, that's okay. Okay, roll trimming confirmed. Target is in the center of crosshair. Crosshair is aligned. 0.6 and closing. Now 0.1.
Принято.
You can see that black circle with the white crosshairs, the docking target that the automated systems are honing in on. In your upper left-hand corner is the docking port itself.
Target center is less than one cell below the crosshair. Crosshair
14 meters out.
approach is smooth. Target length is 1.5 cells, slightly less.
Принято.
Copy. Crosshair is aligned. Target is in the center of the crosshair, 0.11 meters per second and closing. Copy.
Есть база.
Buzzer air confirmed.
ССВП.
SSVP is ready.
Вас понял. Есть
Copy.
небольшое расхождение по крену.
Small
Выравнивается.
misalignment and roll. Trimming in progress. Target is at the center of the crosshair. Crosshair is aligned.
Пол клетки вправо,
Half cell to the right.
вниз от центра перекрестия.
Half cell down relative to the center of the crosshair. Copy.
Как принято.
I'll copy.
Одна клетка
10 meters out.
To the left. We copy all. We copy loud and clear.
по крену.
We have
5 meters.
discrepancy. Target width is 3 cells. streaming in progress. Crosshairs aligned half south from the center of the crosshairs. Target is pretty much at the center of the crosshair. 113.11 and closing. The target is in the center. 4 cells standing by for contact. Target in the center of crosshair. Depot firing confirmed.
Contact confirmed. We have a initial docking of the Soyuz 35 spacecraft carrying Commander Fyodor Yurshikin, NASA astronaut Karen Nyberg, and European Space Agency astronaut Luca Parmitano with the International Space Station.
10:30, copy.
Preliminary docking time was 9:10 p.m. Central Time. We'll work to get you a final official time in a moment.
Yes, go ahead, Vladimir Alexeyevich.
Ну что, как и говорил,
Oh, Fyodor,
Пашки далеко.
as I mentioned, faster than anyone. You've been faster than Pavel. Well, actually, it took us 4 hours, 47 minutes.
Продолжаем работать.
All in. Continue working the procedure.
Параметры КДУ.
Write down the parameters.
Включите S7.
Turn on S7.
Standing by for the hooks and latches to drive and create a firm bond between the Soyuz spacecraft and the International Space Station's Rassvet docking module. Visiting vehicle officer reports the hooks are beginning to drive.
RPZ-1. Closed. This is MCC Moscow. I copy you now. We had a short dropout. We are standing by for KDO parameters. All in, how copy? We copy you now, so please repeat last statement. Standing by for KDO parameters as on page 66. Bottle 1 pressure 175. Bottle 2 pressure 230. Drop 507 on both. Copy, thank you.
Выдали команду R7.
Romeo 7 command, now Romeo 6.
Пару S18.
We turned off the floodlight and closed RPV-1. Copy, standing by for the...
Once again, here's a look at the visitors gallery. At the far end there on the left side of your screen, you can see Doug Hurley, the husband of Karen Nyberg, the newest resident of the International Space Station. As soon as the hooks and latches complete their driving, staying there with Brian Kelly from the Aircraft Operations Division here at NASA.
Bow pressure 805.
Again, everything went very well. Today's successful docking of the Soyuz 35 carrying Fyodor Yurshikin, Luca Parmitano, and Karen Nyberg to the International Space Station. Still unofficial time, but it was at 9:10 p.m. Central Time, occurring as the space station and the Soyuz flew about 250 statute miles over the South Pacific on a northeasterly track that will soon be taking over the northwest portion of South America.
Copy. D710. Visual причал. Is turned is in process of turning off. Okay. Your go. I sent the command.
Команда
Command was successful. Copy. Copy all. Standing by on D15. LED on. Hooks closed. Copy.
Вижу там пальчик. Да. Есть загорание транспаранта.
LED is on.
15.
15. Copy.
Есть погашение D13.
D12 is no longer illuminated. Copy.
Ожидаем загорания защелки втянуты Г-17.
Standing by for latch retraction LED on. Copy.
And the remote interface officer reporting relaying the information from Mission Control Moscow that so far the Soyuz side hooks have closed, but we're still awaiting the latches to sync up with the Rosviet module latches. And now we're receiving a report that the Rosviet module's hooks have closed as well. So we are moving along very well in terms of having a good structural bond between the new Soyuz TMA-09M spacecraft at its docking port, Rosviet module, the Earth-facing port at the end of the Zarya control module on the station. Flight control team here in Houston continues to monitor the activities on orbit very carefully, watching over the space station systems as its next activity once we get a full connection with the newly arrived people carrier will be to set the International Space Station into a
Yes. Горит Г-17.
Г-17 is on.
handover where the U.S.
Г-17 is illuminated.
control moment gyroscopes resume controlling the orientation or attitude of the station relative to the Earth.
Да. Иду на формат SSVP, потом.
I'm navigating to SSVP format because I can't see the data here. Okay?
Для режима SSVP выполнен.
The mode is complete.
Есть загорание транспаранта Дмитрия.
D11 LED.
Russian thrusters firing to maneuver the space station into the local vertical, local horizontal orientation, the standard orbital orientation as the station speeds around the planet.
Погашен.
LED is no longer on.
11.
D8, D11, D12,
Г-17.
D17.
С-11 и режим
D11
больше не горит.
SSVP mode complete. No longer illuminated.
Олимпия, вы обогнали
Olymps.
экипаж Каратов на 6 минут.
Okay, you are 6 minutes faster than Karat's crew was. Oh well.
Это новый рекорд быстрой схемы. Не обогнала,
You guys set new record.
В 05:28
At 05:28:45.
замер по герметичности, и потом продолжим работу. По 68.
Doing the leak check and then proceed with the page 58, 05:28:45.
Attitude, Determination, and Control Officer here in Mission Control, reporting to Flight Director Royce Renfrew that the Russian thrusters are now maneuvering the space station back into its normal orbiting orientation. Once that maneuver is complete, the American electricity-driven control moment gyroscopes will take back over the control of the orientation of the space station. And Fyodor Yurshikin receiving words from Mission Control Moscow that he made a very smooth and effective rendezvous with the International Space Station, 6 minutes under the previous record time. Of course, speed is not of the essence. Precision is the key, and he was right on the money as the spacecraft rendezvoused and docked to the Rassvet module of the International Space Station.
Hello? Fyodor? Can you copy me? Yes, I can copy you. This is Vladimir Lapota. Congratulations. Thank you very much, Vitaly Alexandrovich. Okay, guys. You are doomed to success. I told you before you launched. Yes, you were right. And I would like to thank everybody who believed in us. To thank the crew. Excellent work by everyone. So thanks for everything. I guess you were the one worrying most during launch because the guys, their pulse was 56 and 60, and you had 67. Fyodor? Yes? Thank you for the excellent spacecraft. Worked better than the best watch there is. Well, that was very nice to hear. Okay, now we see your picture on the screen. Now, can your crew say a word? Yes. Hello. I'm in great spirits. Everything is just super. I never felt better in my life. Thank you. Good job. How about Karen? Wonderful. Terrific, Karen. Okay, guys. My congratulations to all of you. You've done it. Thank you. It's not just us, it's all of us who did that. Well, normally we're invisible, guys. It's all about you. You're the ones on the frontier, riding the white horse. Okay, guys. I'll be signing off now. Again, everybody, thank you very much. And also our gratitude to those who built this wonderful spacecraft and who were getting it ready for the space flight. Okay. Rest assured, I'll convey your words to them. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's hard to describe. I can't find enough words to thank you all, guys. Thank you.
It's busy. Mm-hmm. Суп Москвы, Олимп.
Moscow Olymps.
Олимп, привет, суп Москвы.
Go ahead. This is Moscow.
Да, похоже, больше не будет.
Okay, I believe
Да, перевели вас обратно.
will not have any more com here. Yes, we reconfigured the com back.
Через 2 минуты.
In 2 minutes, we're expecting another measurement. It's just a reminder. Okay, slightly more than 2 minutes left.
В 05:30
At 05:30
автоматически его будем ждать тоже обязательно. Вручную.
OBR will be sent automatically. We'll be standing by for that. No manual commandations.
Приняли.
Copy.
Олимп, отключение
Olymp,
антенн Г2 выдавали или нет?
did you send G2 deactivation of antenna heaters? No, not yet.
Я понял.
Copy.
Выдаем?
Are we go to command? Yes.
Давайте.
G2 in work.
Г2 выдали?
Okay, G2 is sent. Okay, great.
Сказали, выдали. Мы быстро.
You know, we're fast.
Извините.
You mentioned it,
Ничего страшного.
so we did it. Okay.
Выдавать надо будет.
Sorry, we probably jumped ahead. No problem. You have less commands to send.
Дождемся.
Okay, let's wait for the measurements and then proceed with the rest of the steps.
Москвы.
Moscow Station, NSG2.
На связи.
Go ahead.
На связи. Так, по поводу
About
какие у нас будут расстояния?
pressure equalization valve covered. Any recommendations?
КВД МИМ-1 ТК переводим в положение электроуправления.
Madam 2, Soyuz hatch, mode to electrical, copy and work,
57.
pressure 857, and all zeros.
Олимп, повторите, пожалуйста. Давай, везде.
Speaking simultaneously.
Данные по герметичности.
Give me the leak check data.
Значит, параметры.
Okay, 15 minutes, all three parameters 0. So, okay, copy.
Ну, сейчас понял.
And this is Mission Control Houston, back with a view of the room where folks are continuing to monitor the International Space Station systems following today's successful rendezvous and docking of the Soyuz TMA-09M spacecraft carrying the Soyuz 35 crew commanded by Fyodor Yurshkin, along with his colleagues, NASA astronaut Karen Nyberg and European space astronaut Luca Parmitano, launching from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan exactly on time at 3:31 p.m. Central Time today, going through a quick and 6-hour-long 4-orbit rendezvous, completing a docking unofficially at 9:10 p.m. Central Time as the space station and the Soyuz flew overhead of the South Pacific a little bit earlier than had been planned in the flight plan, but very smooth and systematic rendezvous and docking. The hooks and latches have all been driven closed successfully, making a firm mechanical connection between the Soyuz and the space station, and everything is looking good as the crew goes through through its procedures to make sure that all systems on the spacecraft are safe and that we begin initial pressure checks to equalize pressures between the Soyuz spacecraft and the Rassvet docking module on the Earth-facing port of the space station. We will wrap up our coverage of the rendezvous and docking now. We will be back for our hatch opening and welcome ceremony coverage at 10:30 p.m. Central Time. We expect hatches to open about 10:55 p.m., but if the crew continues to go ahead of the timeline, that may happen a little early. And then at 10:30 p.m. Central, we'll have our post-docking news conference replay. This is Mission Control Houston.
Why did you want to be a cosmonaut?
I'm very lucky boy, exactly boy, because since my youngest age, I wanted to be a cosmonaut. Why? Because I was born in time when each child hear about space programs, about Yuri Gagarin, German Titov, Alexei Leonov, who first time had EVA, about our girls around us tell, oh, look here, Valentina Tereshkova, first woman in space. Oh, Neil Armstrong, and the first step on the moon, the great American program, it's the moon program, it was the moon program, look here. I grow in this atmosphere, and when we played the games, for example, if somebody win on this place, he was a Gagarin. Why Gagarin? Because it's the first man who flown to space, yes, and sometimes when I was small, I showed the Gagarin, it's like champion. It's not the real man, not the family. And only maybe in school I understood, oh, Gagarin, it's okay. It's because when I was very small and the Gagarin, it was like title. It was not like a real man for me. And I grow in this atmosphere, and but the first day in elementary school, the teacher asked each of us, what do you want to be in future? And my answer was not cosmonaut, my answer was goalkeeper, because I wanted to this great play, football, it's soccer in America, and I was a goalkeeper in my team, but she told me it's not profession. I asked you about profession. Oh, about profession, I wanted to be a cosmonaut. It was since my youngest year, and after this I checked what is better, be a military pilot or engineer, what I prefer. And the engineer win for what reason I understood maybe in this time, then it's maybe in my health it's not enough to be a cosmonaut, but what is more important for me, be a pilot or be an engineer in space program. Of course, the space program, it was too important for me, and I continued my in direction like engineer in space program. I worked in Russian MCC like controller many years. I worked with Mir shuttle program, and the first time here in Houston it was in '95, second shuttle docking with Mir station. I worked like operator from Russian side here. Great time, and each day in space program I understood it's possible to be for me like cosmonaut. I can do it, this job. And why I tell you, I am very lucky boy since my youngest age, because my dream is not done, it's continued.
Let me ask you a couple of questions to find out how you got there. Tell us about your hometown and what it was like for you growing up in that town.
My hometown, if you go away from this building, it's look like my hometown. Not the buildings, but the weather, the weather and nature. I was born in Batumi. It's very small, very interesting. For me, very kind, very soft, very helpful, very soul town in near Black Sea. It's Georgia, and very international town because too many. It's not too many. It's many nationals live in this town, and doesn't matter what the nationality you are, because more matter how you played, for example, in soccer. And each time, and it's very great land, and I think why maybe I have good communication. Sometimes the people told me, then you have good communication between different people. Why? Because it's maybe from this town, maybe from life in this town. And I graduated school in this town, and after this, of course, my rule it was to go to Moscow in Moscow Aviation Institute. But each day, each time, maybe sometimes I call my friend of mine in this town. And for example, several days ago, I was talking with Ilyana Kashidze. We studying together in school with him. Yes, and he is now the doctor, very important doctor. Look here, Ilya's dream was to be a doctor, and he a doctor. Like this, and many friend of mine, he lived on Batumi. We studying together in one school. It's Kostya Gumberidze, Nina Akrobelidze, etc., etc., etc. in this town. And many my friends from Batumi, they working continued his job in Moscow. And look here, the very interesting man, Avtandil Baramidze. We played with him soccer, but he wanted to be a real footballist, soccer. Yeah, he wanted to be, and now he is a coach, and very interesting coach because he has a team, Russian nation team, and he win Paralympic Games. He win World Cup with his great coach. But his dreams since, and I hope each my friend, it's very lucky boy since his youngest age. So great town. I hope after flight I again invite in this town.
Are you able to see it from space?
Look here, each of us, when the first time, of course, the first time we should we wanted to see how the Earth planet look. Yes, we check the pictures what was taken with other cosmonauts and astronauts. Of course, we have several lessons with check the video from station, video how the Earth planet looks from station, EVA video, etc., etc., etc. But it's on the screen. It's one. From your live view, it's another one. And each time we wanted to check how the Earth looking from space. Okay, what is the next step? Where is our motherland? Where is the city friend of mine? Where is my family now? Where is my parents now? Oh, look here, it's Paris, because for everybody, Paris is Paris. Oh, look here, it's New York. Oh, look here, it's London. Wow, it's Africa. Oh, look here, it's pyramids.
So it's hard to imagine just how beautiful that must look.
Yes, it's very amazing, and if you remember, I told you the main purpose of our station is the integration between many international with many nationality. Yes, and if we build one station more, very big for politics, to send all politics on this station for looking the Earth planet. For looking, it's only, for human we have only one home. It's Earth planet home. What would you like to do? It destroy this home, or did it build this home better and better?
To fly in space, as you do, is to do a job that has some unique risks to it. But I assume that you think the risks are worthwhile since you do the job. I'd like to ask you why. What is it that you feel that we are getting, or what is it that we learn as a result of flying people in space that makes it worth the risks you take?
No, look here, I think the risk is around human each time because it's explorer, and each explorer it's with the risk. But with us working so many people, thousands and thousands from each country, yes, the designers check each equipment. So it's maybe not so risk like you talk, but it's risk, of course it's risk. But the first of all, how do you think? I am looking stupid or not? Nobody, no. But nobody answer yes. I know about risk. I have family, I have daughters. For me, it's more important too. It's maybe the importance in my life. I have my parents, I am very lucky. It's important too. But it's a job. And I know this job, of course, it's interesting for me, like it's since my youngest age, I told you, and it's interesting for me like the man. But more important, I know my job is very important for human. I know about this. And maybe now I should, I have a lot of meetings with pupils, students, young people to talking about space program. Maybe now it's usual profession for our Earth planet. But usual, if it was unusual, maybe it was not so important for give the experience to another direction on way. But if it's usual now profession, because ask the people who are on space now. Ask the people, may you tell me 10 astronauts or cosmonauts, and you hear Gagarin, Neil Armstrong, etc., etc. You cannot hear the new one maybe. But it's okay, because if you ask the people about who was the main pilot in our life, they give you the old names, not now. It's usual profession now. If it's usual profession, it's very important profession now too, because doctors, it's usual profession. Teachers, it's usual profession. And space people, it's usual profession now, and we should continue, because I'm sure I give the results, and very great results. Look here, in 2010, I had EVA, and I working with Russian equipment, BRISK equipment. We check the panels outside the station. Yeah, and for each experience, I ask about results. The microbes lived outside the station. Sometimes it's zero gravitation. It's no atmosphere here, but it was alive. Look here, in containers we put seeds, we put the mosquitoes, etc., etc., etc. It stayed without atmosphere. After this, mosquito give a life again. If you ask me before this experience, it's possible or not? No, a mosquito should be killed, should be died. But no. It's interesting. It's a new for everybody. It's a new for, because in this case, everybody the first asked, "Are your container had atmosphere or not?" No. And mosquito have a life after this. It's great. So we should continue. About new technological, new materials. I told you about only Teflon, but it's new glue, new technology for connected to different cables, for example. We had this, we thinking this about zero gravitation, how we do it to zero gravitation, but sometimes it's very simple, and it should be, we should continue it like this technology on ground too. Look here on Moon program, the Sony did it several new monitors. It's like used the new technology of these monitors was for TV monitors. On ISS, on shuttle program, the Kodak digital camera with great sensors. It was built exactly from space program, the first. D760, I think. And after this, digital sensors, because before this program, before this, the digital cameras was not so interesting for everybody. It was the tape cameras, yes, old one design. But the first big, exactly great sensor for digital cameras, it was factored for this program. And now it's usual for everybody. It's usual for my daughters. It's usual for young boys and girls. I know my profession, it's very important for human. Why I am on this road.
Fyodor, you and your crewmates are next in line to launch to the International Space Station. Tell me, in a nutshell, what are the main goals of your flight, and what will your jobs be on this mission?
No, of course, the first of all, we would like to have launch with short rendezvous. It's our goal too, because in my crew, Pavel's crew has one flight engineer from Russian Space Agency. I have flight engineer from ESA and two foreign astronauts with me. And it will be great if we continue this experience with short rendezvous with two foreigners. It's the first step, and the decision about this step, it should be after Pavel's launch and after Pavel's docking, to check how it works between crew, between MCC, between controllers, etc., etc., etc. Okay, we are on orbit now. Yes, and then on orbit we docking with station in end of May, and immediately began working, of course, with station. I hope we will see ATV-4 on orbit in this time, yes, and too many tasks for Luca Parmitano with ATV-4, yes, and Karen should working with both these guys, American guys, with Chris Cassidy and Luca Parmitano, because it's two EVAs, it should be on June. Yes, on June should be one Russian EVA, and this task for me and for Alexander Misurkin. So June is too busy month for us. Okay, July it's not maybe so busy month, because it's not so many EVAs, not EVAs, and this good time for next. We should have several more orbiters on in our flight. It's like SpaceX, Dragon, Sinus, HTV. It's very great time for everybody of us. Of course, for American guys, because the docking to American side, the guys should use the arm. Yes, of course. And again, August to Russians EVA. September we say bye Pavel Vinogradov's crew, and we working too hard. We invite new crew. It's Oleg Kotov's crew. Oleg Kotov come to us. Maybe it's decision now. We will have one more Russian EVA in this case. And I told you only about the most important for like technique. But we have payloads, and we have a lot of payloads like Russian, American, Europe's, JAXA's experience. And for me, maybe one, it should be very interesting experience. It's aquarium experience with small fish in Kiba, because I never seen and never worked with experience like this. I hear about this, and many years ago, it's maybe 20 years ago, we had discussion about this experience, maybe more than 20 years ago, on Mir station. but we never did it like this experience, and it should be very funny, very interesting experience. So, unusual, many medical, biological, technological, etc., experience we will have on station.
Let me get you to talk about science for a few minutes, because that's really become the focus now that the assembly of the station is complete. How do you convey to people the potential for the kinds of scientific discoveries that can be made on board this space station?
First of all, I would like to ask all housekeepers who working on kitchen, for example, because you know about the Teflon technology, yeah? The Teflon, and we have a lot of piece on kitchen with Teflon technology, built it by Teflon technology. Do you like it this or not? Because it's from space station, from space program. It's easy answer for this question, yes. But if you tell each crew, it doesn't matter, each human flights, its longest short direction. We have three very important tasks. The task for maybe 99% of crew, it's we're working with experience for AIDS, for hepatitis, and for раковые болезни, for cancer. And if we help humans for one of these directions, I hope we're done with everything, with each dollar, with each ruble on space station program. Only, I tell you only about three, this very interesting experience. It's cancer, it's AIDS, it's hepatitis. Yeah, but it's only about this. The new one, okay, I told you about fish in space, and we should understood how the life come to Earth planet. Each of us would like to know the parents, grandpa, grandmothers. The life in our parents, it's like our history, how it happened. This is fundamental question. Astronomy experience, biological, geological, ecological now, the first and very important for everybody, it's ecological problem. And for humans' view, from our view, it's we cannot build now the exactly great maybe science equipment without no equipment what we should have a view like humans' eyes. The eyes from space, it's very important, because look here, in Expedition 13, I think, in each site you may see the great pictures with volcano. It's one of island, but it's did it by Expedition 13, and only Expedition 13 in this time check this. Oh, look here, it's volcano began to walk and take the pictures and send the ground. And the science on ground only in, I think, 3-4 hours came in this place. It's like examples how we may help. But I told you about only human International Space Station. But look here, the space program, it's communications, it's satellites. Now it's very easy for everybody, and for example, from my mom's and my daughter's grandma, yeah, to check the cell phone, come to with cell phone, use the internet, but it's from space program too.
One of the
and for this reason, I think now we should more give rules to space programs, station programs, satellites programs, science programs, and maybe go to future to another planet. Now we are ready for this, because we understood about it should be, it must be for human.
Well, one of the big areas of the science research that you're doing is to find out how human beings respond when they're in that environment. Can you give me one or two examples of experiments that are looking into how humans are affected by microgravity environment that you're going to be working on this mission?
It's many examples I may give you. For example, we use the medicine, and each medicine now it's. I remember very well on this station. I remember very well my first flight, and my first flight is with Expedition 5. And Peggy Whitson did this experience with medicine. She used medicine step by step, several types in long direction, because she flown 6 months in this time, yes. And she checked, and okay, the result, it was very great, these results. And the other crews, it's continued this experience. It was the first one. Second one, for example, now on station we have very nice equipment. It's IRET equipment. It's physical training. It's like our gym, yes. And when the crew did it exercise on this, we return. My second flight, it was long flight on station in 2007. We don't have IRET, we have ERET. Yes, it's more simple. Yes, and I know about myself. From 2010, when I used IRET, I returned my physical condition. It was more better than on 2007. This next one example. And I may give you, and we now have a decision about doing the station with maybe not 1G, but maybe with simple G, like G. If we revolve the station or something like this, we may do it the G. It's thinking about next step on, or not, maybe it's not on this station, but next step for human.
In fact, in order to learn more about how people do in that environment for long durations, the station program recently decided to send 2 crew members to the station for 1 full year.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the idea of a year-long flight?
If we okay, but you remember in Russian Mir station we had several flights 1 year direction. Yes, and we had 1 flight, it's 1 and 4 months direction, it's Valery Spolyakov one. But now the equipment is new, sensors it's new, everything it's new, and now it was the time when we thinking about what is the next step, yeah? And now the 2 crew, with different countries, yes, about should have 1 year flight. For me, more important the result and tasks the first, roles the first, and result. If it's flight only for, we should answer to press media, oh, we did it the 1 year flight, it's not interesting. But I know the very important for each partners on ISS station to have more results from this flight, to give this crew more rules how it should be works. And now it's only discussing, yeah. And for my reason, it should be very interesting flight. Now the time for, do not ask the engineers, do not ask science people, do not ask doctors now what is should be very exactly rules on this flight, because it's now on discussing. But I hope and I know it should be very interesting flight.
Would you like to go for a full year yourself?
Now my rule is Expedition 36, 37, but why not? Why not? Look my hair. But the first of all, I should ask my family. But I think the more important than not duration of the flight, rules on this flight. And if it's very interesting flight forward, why not?
The station is filled with a lot of very specialized equipment in the many laboratory modules to help experiments that are going on in other special areas of science. And you referred to a couple of them a few minutes ago. Could you tell me about a couple of different experiments that you will be working on this flight in other scientific disciplines?
Mm-hmm. Okay, for example, the experience, the station is like our home. And station now it's more than 12 years old. For zero gravitation, it's terrible, yes. And we should check what the health in this construction has, what is the health. And we should check each area with different sensors inside the station for understand the construction, have a good health to continue flight or not. This is very interesting because the material in space live not like on ground in zero gravitation. And we should check each bolt, each place, everywhere. Doesn't matter, it's ASU, doesn't matter, it's our table where we sit together and eat, doesn't matter, it's the technical equipment, the cable, because cable could broken, power cable, data cables, our computers, and we change computer each 1.5 year because it's destroyed in station because it's radiation. Yes, we should check the station outside when we have each EVA. The crew has several topics to check the area near the place when we have our task. Yeah, I told you about technological. Now and each day on space, look here. Several different models from different countries. It's European, Japanese, United States, of course, Russian, yes, and different technological. The hatches in Russian, it's circle. The hatches in American segment, it's square. Each day, it's experience too for these designers, for our designers. In Russian, we used automatical docking each time. From American side, now we use it's not automatical, the vehicle comes and guys use the arm, and with arm help to dock this equipment. It's experience or not? We continue this experience too. The many interesting experience is with our body when we have usual exercise. One great experience I may tell you, because I like it, this experience. I put some sensors on my body. It's about 5 minutes before go to bed, yes, and sleep. But experience began. And I like it, this. Because for me, only put sensors and remove the sensors. Now our cave when we are sleeping has a shield, radiation shields, and we continue this experience too to check, because it's very important for long direction flight. If the next step for human is the different planets, but we continued and we changed the type of shields and check what is the radiation before shield and after shield, and we have this data too. Time on space. Space watches, the same on ground, how it works together. So many, so interesting experience. And look here, I think only maybe 50% experience when we used human on space. And many experience. Anytime everybody ask why you have people on space, because the experience only with astronauts and cosmonauts. No, more than 50% it's automatic. We only put this equipment on, and this equipment may working years and years on space and give the data without people, without humans.
You mentioned earlier that among the highlights of this flight is going to be a number of spacewalks that are currently planned, both Russian spacewalks and U.S. side spacewalks. Tell me in a little more detail about the plan for the spacewalks during expeditions 36 and 37, and who's going to go outside and what the work is going to be.
For Russian EVAs on June, we should have the EVA, and we should change with Alexander Misurkin the thermocontrol equipment outside from station on FGB. For what reason? Because FGB, it's now 15 years old, and this equipment, it's continued to work, But the rule to give the life, give the station more life, yes, long life, yes, and we should change this one equipment for a new one. It's very complexable and very interesting for us because we should, the ground should shut off it. It's step by step. Ground shut off the old one pump. We remove old one pump, put the new one pump, ground check this new pump, connect the data from this pump, check how it works, etc., etc., etc. Second one, EVA, we should working with several cables. In end, we hope that in end of this year, the big Russian research module should come to station again, and we should prepare anything from this module, because the power data, we should integrate this module to station, and before the module comes, we should put some cables from American side to place near this module, power cables, data cables, internet cables, etc., etc., etc. This is our second one. And third one, and again, we will work with a lot of cables outside of this station to give the if we put these cables inside the station, look here, we have hatches. It's not so safe. And sometimes more safe for, it's maybe difficult to do it because it should be on EVA to connect the cable from one side and to other side, but it's great technological because we don't have these cables inside the station. And it's, each hatch should be closed. So this time for cables, time for Russian segment, this time for inspection search for American guys.
So you get the opportunity to crawl around on a good portion of the station on this flight, yes?
Yes, we have this opportunity to have these spacewalks, and we hope this Russian spacewalk help, for example, when the module comes, to very fast connect this module and very fast to integrate to station.
On the plan, in mid-September, you're going to become the commander of the station for Expedition 37. Mm-hmm. How does that change daily life for you to go from being a flight engineer to becoming the commander?
In Expedition 15, on Expedition 15, I was like commander and full expedition, and I think the commander's rule only when if unfortunately we have off-nominal situation, it's for me. For usual days, I am one of crew member on the station. Yes, of course, in my experience, I will help everybody of this to check the time, to check how it works. For example, sometimes if we get back late and go late to bed again, we may have not good synchronization with our sleep. The commander should check the whole crew should working on by timeline. Exactly, this is commander's rule, but it's not like commander. You should understand. I may be like very friendly friend with everybody. I should very correct tell. But in off-nominal situation, when we have OBT, of course, it's my rule, because each OBT is on board training with off-nominal situation, and in each OBT it's very great time. For example, because MCC told for orbital training, we only for training reasons we have like fire somewhere. And we continued like this job, and I should coordinate each crew. I should coordinate both Soyuz crew, because in this time Oleg with his crew, I am with my crew, and if something happened, for example, like fire between two crews, we should separate crew. Of course, I give the rule to Oleg in this side, my rules it's in from the other side. If off nominal situation for on board training. we have depressurization. It's a next one scenario, and we don't know what kind of scenario the ground give us. But it should be like on each military ship, on each aircraft, etc., etc. The crew should do it like this training. And on this training, yes, I know about. For usual life, I hope I should be very great friend for each of crew.
During your time on board in this flight, this station will receive supplies from several of the different supply ships that are now working to bring new material to the space station. Tell me about the different ships that are now available and that are supporting the work on board the station.
It's interesting ship for me. Unfortunately, yes, I have. It's 3 flights in my life. Yeah, 3 space station flights, but I never seen the different vehicle. Only progress cargo. Yes, now maybe I should be very lucky to check again ATV. It's European Space Agency. Very interesting vehicle. It has unique docking system. They used GPS and laser in last. And look here, it's about 20 tons, but the speed it's about 7 centimeters per second for docking. Very soft docking. From HTV, it's very unique, very interesting vehicle too, because the cargo, it should be inside the HTV and outside. And from outside, when HTV docked, we use the manipulator. You ask me about experience and experiments, but it's technological experiment, because we may use manipulator, Japanese manipulator, arm, and talking. And for this, yes, the cargo is outside of this vehicle, but without EVA, we may use this cargo. Yeah, Dragon may return to ground, and it's very helpful for crew, because crew may send to ground some stuffs, these stuffs, and of course the experiments, what we have experiments on space, like our blood, our urine, etc., 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 hard drives, pictures, many materials. We should send to ground, yes. Of course, it's the new one, Sinus, for me, and it could be on station. And now I think when we have so many different kind different design of the vehicle, and it's after this experience we should understood what is the better maybe for continued, yeah. And what is, maybe we will use these designs for future human vehicles.
Well, I think that's really the important question. When you think about those different cargo vehicles and what we learn from spacewalks and what we learn from those experiments inside the laboratories, mm-hmm. etc., can you put all of it together and say, what is it that we are learning from these missions to the International Space Station that are going to prepare us for the exploration of the future?
First of all, what we learn, so many different countries with different language, different educations, with different, maybe not so different education, but with different tradition for this education. With different, I told you that each American hatch has square, each Russian it's circle, ring, Y. Yeah, with so many, but we work together. We may have one great rule for this station. We continue this job. For me, this is the greatest experience for this station. And if each politics check our experience, how we may work together, maybe we will give good example to all politics. It's possible. It's possible for each country. It's possible for each nationals. So maybe this is one, it's the greatest example for this great program.
Паш, мы пошли в корабль.
Да, of course.
Да. Мои части там, он есть, все есть.
Окей.
Все, он есть.
25. 30.
Владимирович, у нас как минимум 2 часа резервное время.
Окей.
Soyuz?
Prime first coming forward.
Секунд, да. Okay, 26 секунд, it's still about 2 hours.
Still about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Давай.
Right now,
Two, because that's where because next time, because it's American segment, it's step 6. Not half.
Radar?
Fire extinguisher is done, so что еще? That I check the IMV valves. It's closed. Oh, it should be closed. It's closed?
okay, you guys gonna close this?
Между ноудом 2. Я уже между ноудом 2 и Коламбусом, ноудом 2 и Джемом не выбрал.
Those?
Yeah.
So I think you're right.
It's page 198, step 7.
Задний люк модуля
198 step
Just
7. No.
изоляция модуля 2, ноут 2. Закрыть передний люк. Yes, right.
I hear something very faint. Houston's going to be performing 1-2, assessing the module. So we need, I guess, somebody to go towards and see and then just inspect it and see what they think.
Things right now.
Good measuring. I mean, is it comfortable to breathe? What's my reading?
Yep, your measurement right there for your
Yeah.
CSACP is 2. What's up? When you get a chance, if you could give us a status of how things are. You, 178, 5.0, and 1.5.
Based on your results, we do.
Continuing to climb, 267 in kilo 1.
267.
So, Luca, you see 268 and 269 for next year.
Sharon, we have closed the lab forward hatch.
Fire extinguisher has been discharged into kilo 1 Close. Check. Hey guys, we need to change now what to do, I think.
Yeah, well, I think what I'm going to do
It didn't seem to me like this was the case. The fire continues unabated.
No,
there
no.
didn't seem to be the
No,
case.
no, no, no.
So
There was no more smoke.
Oxygen system utilization, it looks like.
Yeah.
So,
Flare's been extinguished.
yeah, let's tell you.
Houston station on 1. At this point, we're guessing that we'll be moving on to 6.1 oxygen system utilization, since it looks as though we have extinguished the fire. Do you agree?
And we'll take care of that from the ground.
Thank you.
Take it on the wall.
Take the CO2
It's on the forward starboard.
That's right. Just as he briefed us about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but either way, that's where we're taking it. So.
Right. That's
Okay.
true.
Then we go to step 3.
Three.
What about step 3? Okay.
We just
Science, technology, innovation, education. That's what NASA's all about. NASA Television brings you the universe like no one else can. NASA TV's public and media channels are delivered as a free service in high definition to your cable and satellite provider. Our education channel remains in standard definition so that schools and museums can continue to receive it. If you want to receive NASA TV in full HD, contact your service provider and let them know. NASA Television, bringing the universe to you in HD.
Hi, I'm Dwayne Johnson, the voice of Chuck the astronaut in the film Planet 51, and you're watching Emmy Award-winning programming on NASA TV.
Welcome back to Mission Control Houston, where the team of flight controllers, led by Flight Director Royce Renfrew, talking with the crew through Kate Rubens, astronaut acting as spacecraft communicator in Capcom, continues to monitor the activities aboard the International Space Station following a successful launch, rendezvous, and docking of the Soyuz 35 crew, Commander Fyodor Yurshkin, NASA astronaut Karen Nyberg, and European space astronaut and Italian Luca Parmitano, all launching from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, Kazakhstan, as scheduled at 3:31 p.m. Central Time. They went through a 6-hour 4-orbit rendezvous with the International Space Station and docked at a time that's now officially 9:10 p.m. Central Time and 34 seconds. Following that, hatches and latches drew closed, providing a firm mechanical handshake between the Soyuz TMA-09M spacecraft and the Rosvet module hatch on the Earth-facing port of the International Space Station.
For manual pressure gauge.
Crew is in the process of going through leak checks and pressure checks to make sure that everything is good before they open hatches and combine the two crews, the Soyuz 35 crew, along with the rest of the Expedition 36 crew on board the space station. Pavel Vinogradov, the current commander, along with astronaut Chris Cassidy and flight engineer Alexander Masurkin, will be welcoming aboard Yurshkin, Nyberg, and Parmitano, constituting the full 6-person Expedition 36 crew for the next several months of scientific research aboard the International Space Station. We do have some replays, first of launch and then of the rendezvous and docking. Let's take a look at those now.
Take a break.
По мере необходимости можете самостоятельно пользоваться пересветкой. Хорошо. Принято.
Только слишком рано. Я еще завкон. Да. Извини.
И вниз одна клетка. Право одна.
Again, the Soyuz spacecraft carrying Fyodor Yurshkin, Luca Parmitano, and Karen Nyberg being replayed here with a very precise arrival at the International Space Station. Fyodor Yurshkin and the automated Kurs docking system guiding the spacecraft to a precise docking of the Rosvet module of the International Space Station. Again, that docking time now official at 9:10 p.m. Central Time and 34 seconds. Shortly after that, hooks and latches were closed, marking a firm mechanical bond between the two spacecraft. The docking target firmly in the crosshairs of the Soyuz docking system as the two spacecraft met up over the southern Pacific Ocean. Currently, the combined spacecraft are orbiting once again over about the same spot in the Southern Pacific Ocean on a northeasterly track that will be taking the entire station complex, including the newly arrived Soyuz, over the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico.
Of course.
We're standing by for our hatch opening and welcome ceremonies, which will, of course, follow the required checks of the relative pressures between the Soyuz and the space station, making sure that we have good seals in all the hatches before they're opened and the new crew can be welcomed by the current crew aboard the International Space Station.
With video checkout, should be checking it out at this time. Yes, Sasha, we're still waiting, but you can go ahead and turn on
I was in the
service module camera. Are the cameras set up? Yes, all the cameras are set up, and is the application and viewer running? No, not yet. But using this opportunity, I'd like to congratulate Voter and your crew on safe arrival to the station. Olympia, we're standing by for a 5-minute redone of pressure measurement. 747. Copy 747. Affirmative, 747. Moscow Station on Space to Ground 1. Go ahead. Volodya, I think you should be getting video at this time. And the gas analyzer is on.
Сейчас, Саш, мы тут с наземными службами разберемся.
Sasha, let us talk to our GCs in all of the mission control centers that are involved. And but you do see it, right? See the image? Yes, I see the image I'm receiving from the SM camera. Right, that's what you should be seeing. So a large diameter of service module, that's what you should be seeing. Copy. But leave it for the time being. Let us coordinate.
Так, Саш, мы уже получаем по одному каналу.
Sasha, we are receiving you via one channel. We see you and someone else. Oh, it's Pasha. Oh, Pasha, greetings. And he says, say hi to Volodya for me as well. Okay, so I think there is enough space for all 6 of you to be accommodated, correct? Yes. We're going to make it work. Copy.
Вот так вот, думаю, хватит как раз.
I think this is perfect. You don't need to change anything else.
Чуть-чуть откати назад. Чуть-чуть.
Actually, Pasha, if you could move yourself back a little bit. Just a slight tidbit.
Достаточно.
I think this is good enough. And Pavel Vladimirovich, could you confirm that the gas analyzer is on? Sergey, I did report to you just now that the gas analyzer was on. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I heard you right. Thank you. So, Sergey, in that case, we're ready to open the hatches, or one hatch, on your go.
Значит, ну, тогда мы хотим, чтобы вы прилетали тогда, да, уже в нем, я так понимаю.
Sasha, I understand you will be opening the hatch on the MRM, so we'll switch the cameras to MRM. Actually, it would be easier for me to just stick around here because the camera in there is already on. Okay, so let us switch between the cameras. Copy. Olympic Mission Control. Go ahead.
This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to take a look at the view from Mission Control Moscow as we wait for the hatches and their seals to be verified and pressures to be equalized between the newly arrived Soyuz and the rest of the International Space Station as we look forward to our planned hatch opening and welcome ceremonies aboard the International Space Station.
That's okay. So there are no worries. Do you have a minute to take another recommendation? I'm ready. In the ascent and descent ODF, if you could write down on page 190 some additional information, if you could have that book ready. Is this about the supply light being illuminated? No, it's somewhat different. This is data for early return. Okay.
Give me выведение спуск командирскую.
Guys, could you give me the...
This is Mission Control Houston with live video from inside the International Space Station, the Zarya control module, as we look down toward the hatch of the Rassvet module, which is where the three new crew members, Fyodor Yurshikin, Luca Parmentano, and Karen Nyberg, will be entering the International Space Station.
We were not...
Pavel Vinogradov, the current space station commander there, following along as pressure readings are monitored to make sure that we have good seals with all the hatches before they can be opened.
So it says 115.2 right now on page 190, step 5. The time of SKD on has changed. And you need to write that down. Okay, page 190, step 5. Enter the SKD time. Yes. At the bottom of the page where it says execute, and then also write down enter burn. Okay, enter burn.
Да, 128.0.
128.0. Okay, 128.0. Right, because you're going to automatically set it to 115.2, so you need to change it to 128. Okay, so enter different time for TSKD on. Or actually at TSKD duration of firing. Instead of 115.2 seconds, it needs to be 128.
As we continue to take a look at Mission Control Moscow, once again we have a number of International Space Station program officials and dignitaries, as well as NASA Public Affairs Officer Rob Navius at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, where the officials and the families of the crew members have all been eagerly watching the launch, rendezvous, and docking, and everything is looking very good so far as the trio of crew members is just waiting for hatch pressures to equalize so that they can come aboard. Let's go out to Rob Navius for an update now on what's going on at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Kelly, thanks and welcome back to Baikonur, Kazakhstan, and a venerable old military hall called the Tsenki Hall here in Baikonur. That is the venue for the families and invited guests and VIPs and dignitaries here today who have been asked to come here to watch the docking and the hatch opening so Expedition 36 can double in size. Just 7 hours ago, this crew lifted off in a spectacular launch from at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. With me today, Bill Gerstenmaier, NASA's Associate Administrator for Human Exploration and Operations. And Bill, we talked earlier this morning, what an amazing launch. It just hit you in the gut, as it always does. But your impressions of that, and here we are about to have the crew double in size.
It was pretty amazing today when we got to see the video of the docking, to see the Soyuz that we had just seen on the launch pad and just seen it lift off, to be there in space, approaching the space station. And as I said earlier this morning, the other thing that was amazing was we got to see space station fly overhead about 4 minutes before the launch. So to see that little white dot, which is space station with their 3 crew on board, and then to see the Soyuz arriving to that little white dot in space is just phenomenal. So, you know, we talk about orbital mechanics, we think about physics, we think about all the math that sits behind this, but then when you see with your own eyes and you feel the launch, you see the video, you can actually perceive what's going on, and to put real reality to that mathematics is pretty amazing to watch what just occurred here, and to have the crew open the hatch and get to be there as a crew of 6 will be just phenomenal.
You mentioned a few minutes ago about the history inside this building. Here we are in Baikonur, the birthplace of human spaceflight, basically, and outside murals and paintings that just epitomize the entire history of Russian spaceflight. They're very proud in their tradition.
Yeah, it's tremendous walking around here looking at the paintings and pictures on the walls of all the famous people from Russian spaceflight history. Some of the venue is just amazing. And then you can see also they have some pictures of new things in Baikonur, of kids running in races and doing bicycle races and swimming. So they really celebrate kind of the whole city. So it's clearly a city of spaceflight, clearly a city of pushing technology and new things, but they also recognize day-to-day life and human things that go on here as well. So a very special venue to be here, and to be here with this high-tech setup we've got where we can actually be here talking to you and streaming back to Houston is pretty amazing. So you see this amazing history on the walls, and then you see the amazing technology, and you link those together, and that's really the best of the space program.
And what Bill is alluding to is our NASA communications specialists here in Baikonur who support Russian services in Moscow as well. They have 2 laptop computers, one projecting NASA television onto the front screen for the assembled guests, and one is actually hooked up to voice loops, which a few minutes from now will be used by the VIPs, Bill, Jean-Jacques Dordain, the Director General of the European Space Agency, and family members to talk to the crew members on orbit from here in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. Just amazing. It never ceases to wonder at the ability of technology today. If you look at Kazakhstan, we're in basically a fairly desolate area of the world, and yet we are linked to the International Space Station, and that's just remarkable.
It's absolutely amazing when I think of the technology and the expertise that goes into making all this happen. And again, you know, our folks and teams make all this activity look easy, but it is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And I really tip my hat to all the experts that have done just a phenomenal job of getting all this stuff ready and prepared to make this a really special event for all of us here in Baikonur.
And just to put the punctuation mark on that, our trip back to Moscow today will actually take longer than it did for this crew to reach the International Space Station today. With that, we'll turn it back to you, Kelly, for hatch opening coming up momentarily.
Back now with coverage of the activities inside the Mission Control Center in Houston, where we are eagerly awaiting the completion of pressure checks and hatch leak checks between the Soyuz 35 spacecraft and the International Space Station. The Rosvet module at the Earth-facing port of the Zarya Control Module was the arrival point when the Soyuz containing Soyuz TMA-09M Commander Fyodor Yurshikin, NASA astronaut Karen Nyberg, and European Space Agency astronaut Luca Parmitano arrived at the International Space Station by the clock officially at 9:10 and 34 seconds p.m. Central Time, following a 6-hour chase of the International Space Station that went flawlessly. Following a launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on the dot at 3:31 p.m. Central Time. A number of dignitaries, in addition to Bill Gerstenmaier, on hand there at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. And we are anticipating a call from those dignitaries and the family members. They're in the viewing room at the Baikonur Cosmodrome to the International Space Station as soon as these leak checks and pressure checks are completed and the 3 new crew members are able to enter the International Space Station.
Олимп, ожидаем от вас 20-минутный замер.
Olymp, give us the 20-minute measurement, please.
746 ровно.
7:46 even.
746 принято.
7:46, copy.
Саша, как меня из ГАЗ слышно? Отлично, получилось.
Sasha, how do you read me from the pressurized adapter? Loud and clear.
Давай.
Okay, the loudspeaker in here is on, so copy. Pavel, I will be joining you momentarily. Okay, go ahead.
Ребята, у нас есть Q-band, мы вас видим.
And guys, we have KU at this time, and we're getting live video.
Что, можем открывать люк?
Excellent. Are we going to open the hatch then?
Ну, верхний зал должен сказать.
That decision needs to come from Soyuz Flight Control Team. Okay, we'll stand by for their go.
Олимпы, СУПа Москвы. Ожидаем очередной.
Olympus, Mission Control Moscow. Next measurement, please.
Принял 7:40.
746. 746, copy.
Олимпы, я ЦУП Москвы.
Olympus, Mission Control.
Ранее замером.
Go ahead.
Считается герметично.
We believe that with the results of these measurements, we are pressure tight. You can close KKT and start performing 10.3 to 9.3 to perform expedited pressure equalization. Copy 9.3. And please remember to close KKT before you start that step. It's already closed. Okay.
Лука, скажи мне давление ОБ.
And Luca, can you give me station pressure, please?
Шесть, 696.
696.
Так, Лука.
696.
Низко орбитальный полет.
Luca, can you give me orbital flight ODF, page 82?
10.9.3.
Step 10.9.3.
Федор Николаевич, у нас давление от утра было 752.
Fedor Nikolaevich, this morning our pressure was 752.
Давление.
Already. Luca, can you check the pressure again, please?
Понятно. Самое, Саш, дай свой.
Copy. Sasha, can you give me your pressure? Let me actually go to the pressure gauge, but I know by heart that it was 752 when we got up this morning. But I will double check on that. And Luca, have you opened page 82? Step 10.9.3. We will be performing this step now. Please put your headset on.
This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to watch live views of International Space Station Expedition 36 Commander Pavel Vinogradov as he stands by in the Zarya control module of the International Space Station in front of the hatchway that will soon allow him to welcome 3 crew members to his fold as the trio on board the International Space Station doubles in size to a crew of 6 that will spend the next several months conducting important space station research, multiple spacewalks, and supporting multiple arrival of visiting vehicles to help resupply and provide additional research experiments on the International Space Station. We're in the last stages of the leak and hatch checks that will ensure the safety of the opening of the hatches so that that trio of spacefarers can enter into their new home in space. Again, Fyodor Shikin, NASA's Karen Nyberg, and the European Space Agency's Luca Parmitano are arriving at the International Space Station following a launch at 3:31 p.m. Central Time from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. They officially docked to the International Space Station at 9:10 p.m. Central Time today.
30 секунд.
We are standing by for the hatch openings and then a subsequent welcoming ceremony that will include a call from gathered officials and family members in Baikonur, anxious to talk to the crew members when they're in their new home.
10 секунд.
10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Guida comando.
Command issued. S6. Okay.
Еще горит.
LED is still on.
Ну, и время нужно.
Yes, it takes time.
Олимп и ЦУП закрылся, КВД?
All lamps, Moscow. КВД,
Закрылся?
Нет,
is it
еще
closed? No, not yet. The LED is still on. Resend S6.
еще выдаю еще раз.
Okay, I'm resending it.
S6.
S6.
Есть погашение.
LED is off. Okay, closed.
Принято.
Copy.
ЦУП, Олимп.
Moscow lamps, we closed.
Вас понял, закрыть.
We copy it, closed.
Стороны станции откроют люк, и после этого...
Now the guys will open the hatch from the station side, and
Хорошо.
then you'll be working on MCC Go. Okay, standing by for your go.
Александр, придет состав 1, можно открыть люк.
Okay, Alexander, your go to open the hatch from your side. Okay, copy.
Yeah, opening the hatch.
Can work.
As Alexander Mazurkin floats into the Zarya control module.
Make sure it doesn't float away. Further, is this mine? I really don't know. We'll take care of it later. Okay.
Судя по всему, открыли.
Well, it looks like we opened. It's open.
Also joining the group in the Zarya control module is NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, sporting a new hairdo.
Олимп, тепловой сектор строительства выполняем в рамке ПУ.
Page 82, work the box on MCC Go.
Это ККТ.
Okay, ККТ open.
КВД.
КВД open.
Лука, посмотри.
Luca, check S3. LED is on.
S3 горит.
S3 is on.
So the internal hatch on the Zarya control module now open, and we can see the hatch leading into the Rassvet module.
Check the pressure manovacuum-meter. Okay.
Leak checks continuing as we await the entry of Fyodor Yurshikin, Luca Parmitano, and Karen Nyberg into the International Space Station.
сейчас. 795 right now.
Олимпа, как там давление по мановокометру?
What's the pressure on the pressure gauge?
782.
782.
Принято.
Okay.
$780.
780.
Принято.
Copy.
Принято.
This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to await the opening of hatches from the Soyuz TMA-09M spacecraft and the entry of NASA astronaut Karen Nyberg, European Space Agency astronaut Luca Parmitano, and Russian Federal Space Agency cosmonaut and commander of the Soyuz Fyodor Yurshikin into the International Space Station. Trio of crew members aboard the space station. On your left, Chris Cassidy with a recent reduction in his haircut, along with Alexander Mazurkin. Obscured is Space Station Commander Pavel Vinogradov. The new hairstyle for Cassidy, apparently a welcoming joke for Luca Parmitano, who sports a similar hairdo.
$770. $766.
764.
Принято 760.
Copy 760.
Ребят, у нас пока 750. Принято.
Say it again.
Не понял. Что сказали?
What did you say?
Картинка стоит пока у нас.
We have only still image.
Не появился.
We do not have KU band yet.
Хорошо.
Okay. Let us know when.
Я так понимаю, люк можете открыть, но пока не выходите.
I understand that you can open the hatch, but do not egress yet. Well, we are trying.
Пытаемся.
$5999 ведер, ключик у вас в кармане.
О, есть картинка живая.
Okay. We are getting the live image.
Картинка ожила.
The image is back to life. Okay.
This is Mission Control Houston. The Environmental Control Systems Officer here in Mission Control reports that the pressures between the hatch of the Soyuz spacecraft and the Rassvet module that we're looking at now are equalizing at this time, setting the stage for a hatch opening that will soon allow Fyodor Yurchikhin, Luca Parmitano, and Karen Nyberg to enter the International Space Station, making it a crew of 6. Alexander Masurkin preparing to capture some images of the new trio as they enter into the space station, joining the rest of the Expedition 36 crew, which also includes NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy and, of course, Commander Pavel Vinogradov.
Олимпия, какое текущее давление?
Olymps, what's current pressure?
Давление такое, что крышка открыта.
The pressure was good enough to open the hatch. Okay. Copy. And I was hearing Basha was pounding on the hatch. Sounded like he hated it because it wouldn't open. Only he could have done that. Okay, come out. Well, guys, congratulations on hatch opening. Thank you.
And the hatches between the Soyuz spacecraft and the International Space Station opening at 11:14 p.m. Central Time.
Okay, guys, we are ingressing the station. Go ahead and call us in the usual manner when you call the ISS. Okay. Right now we're in the process of transferring. Turn off the ICOM.
Luca Parmitano entering the International Space Station, seeing the new hairstyle being sported by Chris Cassidy, complete with a shaved head and a matching goatee. The two exchanging a lot of laughter, as well as the rest of the crew. Karen Nyberg there, also entering into the International Space Station. Behind her, Fyodor Yurshikin and current commander of the station, Pavel Vinogradov, as they head out of the Rassvet module and into the main portion of the International Space Station. We're hoping to have a conversation between the team on orbit and dignitaries and family members gathered in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. Three crew members rounding out the Expedition 36 crew to a total of 6 members after a shortened 6-hour 4-orbit rendezvous and docking with the International Space Station. Again, launch occurred at 3:31 p.m. Central Time. Docking occurred at 9:10 p.m. Central Time, and hatch opening at 11:14 p.m. Here's a look at the viewing room in Baikonur, where officials and family members are all waiting to say hello to the crew on orbit. Today's hatch opening delayed by some extended pressure checks and leak checks, but now the 6-person crew together and moving into position to have that conversation.
Экипаж МКС ЦУПа Москву в канале СГ-1, проверка связи.
Moscow Station on Space Ground 1, com check.
Экипаж МКС ЦУПа Москвы в канале СГ-1, проверка связи. Да, ЦУП Москвы.
Station Moscow on Space Ground 1. Yes, MCCM, I have you loud and clear. How do you hear us?
Я вижу, вы уже готовы. Поздравляем вас с прибытием.
I can see that you are ready. Congratulations on your arrival and the launch from Baikonur. Copy. Baikonur ISS, how do you read?
Station, this is Mike Serber in Baikonur. How do you hear me?
We have you loud and clear.
station. Please stand by for our guests. We'll start with Bill Gerstenmaier. This is Gerst. It's great to see all you guys on orbit. It seems like I just saw you here on Baikonur not too long ago.
Yeah, that was a quick ride to station. That was pretty fantastic.
I won't spend very much time. I'll pass it off to Jean-Jacques so you can spend some time with your families. So enjoy Space Station and have a great time.
Thank you.
Space Station, Jean-Jacques Baudin speaking. So, congratulations. It's fantastic to see you, the six of you there. And it's amazing because we have left I would like just to say that we left one Luca on ground and we see two Luca on the video.
It's just
okay.
I cannot believe that only.
Okay, I'll pass to the family, but Luca, I am very glad to see you smiling and have a good stay in Space Station.
I'm sure we will. We'll have a great time. Thank you.
Поздравляю экипаж с удачной стыковкой. Congratulations on the successful docking. We're very happy that it took you so little time to get to the space station. You are in a new home, and I hope it becomes your real home. And I'd like to add that you showed us such tricks and splendid pictures, and I'm so happy that you feel really at home and that you've become one big, great family. And I love you so very much, my dear. Thank you, thank you. I'd like to say to you that you are the greatest girl in the world, and I love you so very much, and this is for everybody to hear.
Hey everybody, it's Doug with a wonderful launch with ISS passing over. You guys all look great, and there are way too many bald guys on Space Station now. Have a great time up there.
Hey there. I'm glad you enjoyed the launch. It was a pretty cool ride.
Hey everybody up there, this is Kathy. We just want to send our best wishes, and we're certainly hoping that your ride was as good as the show, because from down here it was pretty amazing. And Chris, you definitely threw a bunch of people through a loop.
I told Chris that it looks awesome like this, and he's probably going to keep going the GoTee too, just to make it even better. I hope you had fun watching our launch. We certainly did. I'll talk to you soon.
Luca, sono la mamma. Dovevo prepararmi a queste emozioni. Ho una certa età ormai. Sono orgogliosissima di te, Luca. Ti voglio bene.
Ciao mamma, voglio bene, qua è bellissimo, non si può descrivere. Ciao, spero che ti sia piaciuto tutto. A presto.
Daddy, this is Lena. I'm so happy that you launched successfully, and I wish you all the very best and good luck. And I'll be missing you so very much. Did you hear me? Lenочка, Dashenka, my sweet girls, please kiss each other and kiss your mommy. I love you very much. Daddy? Hi. I'm so happy it went successfully. I was very worried. I'd like to wish you successful work and good luck. I love you very much. Hugs and kisses. Thank you. Thank you, honey. And I'm so happy you finally got to Baikonur. Can you hear me? Hi. On the part of the Russian side, congratulations on a successful docking. Thank you. The equipment proved itself and behaved. Reserve liable. I'm glad it went as planned. Thank you once again on behalf of the entire crew. It's great up here. Thank you, Fyodor. Thank you.
Luca, finalmente dopo una giornata di ansia ti vedo e finalmente sono tranquillo e felice. Felice perché ti vedo felice, ti vedo contento. Ciao Luca.
Ciao papà, qui sono contento perché è bellissimo, sembra di sognare, è al di là di qualsiasi cosa che avrei potuto mai immaginare. Tutto, dalla partenza fino all'arrivo qui sulla stazione e poi trovare i miei colleghi che non vedo da un paio di mesi, volare qui in orbita, è tutto quello che immaginavo e ancora di più, la realtà che supera la fantasia. Ti voglio bene papà, spero che ti sia divertito.
Two, three, go. This is Maya that's trying to say that she loves Papa.
Hey Maya, see? Papa gets to fly, I'm floating. I hope you can see me. I'm not moving too much, but it's a lot of fun, and I'll tell you all when I come back, or actually, I will tell you all next time I see you.
Station, this is Bacchanal. We want to wish you a well-deserved rest, and we've reached the end of our event. Thank you.
Байконур МКС. Как нас слышно?
Baikonur ISS, how do you read?
Ребята, ну на этом все. Спасибо большое.
Guys, I think this is it. Thank you very much. It went very well. Copy.
Всем спасибо.
Thanks, everybody.
Еще раз поздравляю.
Congratulations once again.
Спасибо. Спасибо, друзья.
Thank you. Thank you, friends.
Всех экипажей.
Thank you on behalf of both crews. On behalf of our one big crew. We'll be signing off then.
Телевидение выключаем.
I'll be shutting down TV. Thank you.
Да, все, можно отключать телевидение.
Yes, you're welcome to. That's it.
Ребята, я так понимаю, еще.
And so Expedition 36 Commander Pavel Vinogradov signing off for the International Space Station crew after that special event in which dignitaries and family members gathered in Baikonur, Kazakhstan, had an opportunity to chat with the crew. Of course, the new crew is now comprised of Pavel Vinogradov, the commander, Alexander Mazurkin and Chris Cassidy, the flight engineers who've been on orbit since arrival on March the 28th, and the new crew members, Fyodor Yurshikin of the Russian Federal Space Agency, Luca Parmitano of the European Space Agency and Italy, and NASA's Karen Nyberg of Minnesota. They had an opportunity to talk with several different dignitaries. William Gerstenmaier, who is the head of Human Exploration Operations for NASA, Jean-Jacques Dordain of the European Space Agency, the leader of that agency, as well as Doug Hurley, Nyberg's husband, and then Luca Papartano's wife, and a number of other family members who all had a chance to chat briefly with the crew now that the hatches have been opened and the newly constituted six-person crew is ready for duty on board the International Space Station. Just to run through the times again, launch occurred as planned at 3:31 p.m. Central Time today. It was followed by a 6-hour-long 4-orbit rendezvous and docking, with docking occurring at 9:10 p.m. Central Time. And that was followed by a hatch opening at 11:14 p.m. Central Time. All of the crew members happy and healthy aboard the International Space Station.
Москва-Олимпом, как слышите?
Москва-Олимпом, how do you read? Land clear.
From here, the crew will go on to a brief period that's marked down as a snack after that quick trip to the International Space Station, a little time to get something in their stomachs for Pavel Vinogradov, Alexander Mazurkin, Chris Cassidy, Fyodor Yashikin, Luca Parmitano, and Karen Nyberg. Then I'll be off to the standard International Space Station safety briefing, in which Commander Paul Vinogradov will lead the crew through a tour of the orbiting outpost, pointing out the important locations for safety gear, and everyone getting a briefing on where to go in the event of an emergency or an unexpected activity aboard the space station. Of course, everybody needs to first head for the spacecraft that will take them home, but you need to have a good orientation inside the huge outpost. It's as big as a 5-bedroom house, and a number of twists and turns to be taken, and it takes a while to get acclimated to your home on orbit. The newly arrived crew members will have scheduled time on each of their days to do just that, as they work themselves into the workflow with the rest of the Expedition 36 crew and move on to all the important work that's ahead of them, and space station research, preparations for several spacewalks of both U.S. and Russian origin, and the arrival of visiting vehicles from the European Space Agency, the Japanese Space Agency, and of course Russian resupply vehicles as well.
Cartridge Orbs Ocean Bed 1.
Crew is scheduled to begin its sleep shift at approximately 3 a.m. After some pre-sleep activities and that safety briefing are complete.
And 3 gas masks
Еще раз повторите последнее.
into the Soyuz vehicle. Can you say that again, please? Yes, you need to take BNP number 18 from MRM1 and stow it in your Soyuz vehicle. Copy number 18. BNP from MRM1. Right, and 3 gas masks. Copy. And Fyodor, that does it for us. We are very excited about your arrival. The launch and the docking was super fast and spectacular. And we congratulate your new entire crew, which has doubled in size, and wish you all the best, and we'll hand you over back to the station control. Thank you, guys. Thanks to the entire team for your excellent work, and we'll talk to you next time.
And that was the lead for the team of flight controllers that supported the Soyuz launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan today, and its climb into orbit and rendezvous with the International Space Station, as that team hands over to the normal mission control Moscow team that will handle orbital operations from here on out. Here in the Houston Mission Control Center, the oncoming team of Orbit 1 flight directors, which will be led by Flight Director Ron Spencer, is in the process of conducting its handover from the offgoing Orbit 3 team that oversaw this launch, rendezvous, and docking, led by Flight Director Royce Renfrew. Spacecraft communicator for the upcoming shift will be Rob Hayhurst, who will be guiding the crew through the final stages of its day. A couple of programming notes. Remember that coming up at 1 a.m. Central Time, 2 Eastern, we'll have a video file recapping all of today's activities aboard the International Space Station and from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. And then we'll have an update on the status of the crew tomorrow morning with our regularly scheduled Space Station live broadcast at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. With that, we will close out our coverage of today's launch, rendezvous, and docking. A successful trip for Fyodor Yashikin, Luca Parmitano, and Karen Nyberg to the International Space Station as they prepare to begin their months-long visit aboard the outpost and conduct important research and operational activities. Remember that you can follow along with the activities of this crew on the internet at www.nasa.gov/station. Multiple tweeters among the astronauts aboard the International Space Station. Go to the main NASA page and connect, and you can find all the different links to the astronauts, their Twitter feeds, and also don't forget the International Space Station Facebook page. With that, we'll close out tonight's broadcast. This is Mission Control Houston.